So I joined in as a diploma student for the commercial pilot's license. So yeah, you would call it a modular program because you want to get 200 hours of flight time if you want to convert your license to a DGCA one. Getting into airlines is not the only thing out there. There's stuff like charter pilots, skydiving pilots. So if you want to minus the months that I took on break and the lockdown, it took me 2 years.
Hey guys, welcome to the Aviation Surf podcast. And on this episode, we've got Roshan, who is a trainee pilot in Australia and who is completing his pilot training right now. So before we proceed with this podcast, Roshan, please introduce yourself and why you got involved in aviation and what influenced you to become a pilot in the first place.
Well, thanks, Jeanette, for having me here. And yeah, like you said, I'm Roshan. I'm 22. I've been crazy about planes since I was 3. So I know it's cliche. A lot of people are, that's how the story is. It's crazy about planes. I wanted to become a pilot and I'm a pilot. And how did I get into aviation? I really have no idea because I was too young. But one of the first memories that I have is that we used to have a really close family friend who used to live in the same city. I'm from Chennai in India. And yeah, he worked with Lufthansa. He still works there. And he used to take me to his office, which was obviously in the airport, and used to see the big boys like the A340 or the 747s, which they still operate actually. And I guess at one point I just thought I wanted to do that. I wanted to be the guy who flew that. So yeah, that's how it got started. So yeah.
Was he a pilot or was he like a aircraft mechanic or engineer?
No, he was the station manager for
I
Chennai
see. I
at the
see.
time. Yeah.
I see that's good because a lot of us got
Yeah.
influenced with being around the airport or extensive travel here and there. So that's one of the reasons most of us actually got involved in that. How did you pinpoint this flight school in Australia, and how did you manage to get hold of this flight school? And why Australia in the first place? Why didn't you go to any other country where there's so many other flight schools, such as in United States or in Canada or even the United Kingdom as well? So why did you choose Australia in the first place?
When I was getting into more seriously into flying, my parents were more leaning towards the cadet program. So at that time, Indigo was I think it was the only one apart from Jet that we were leaning towards Indigo. And there was an Indigo program in Australia as well because I've got family in Australia. So it always helps, when you have someone in another country. So that's why Australia. But I think around midway into my training with the cadet program, I it wasn't a me decision. It was an us decision that maybe this is not for me. It was a little bit stressful, so pulled out of there. And honestly, the only reason I joined Learn to Fly initially, at least, was because they had the DA40s, and I had started out on the DA40. So from first solo to first solo navigation flight, the cross country navigation flight, it's all on the DA40. And I wasn't, in some ways, you could say that I was too comfortable and I didn't want to change aircrafts. So I moved from Adelaide to Melbourne, and I would learn to fly now.
I see. That's good because not a lot of people actually go around with cadet programs because they are very structured in an integrated manner. In a very short
Yeah.
span, you're supposed to do a lot of things. So I think it's not for everyone, and also it comes with a heavy cost as well. Because I
Yeah.
did a podcast
Yeah.
with one of the Indigo cadets as well, and then he did quote a lot of price when compared to the modular programs.
It is pricey. There's no doubt about it. But then it was also a little bit stressful. So it's not for everyone, like you said, and it certainly wasn't for me. So the best decision for me was to come out of it. But again, I've got a lot of friends who are in the cadet programs. They're doing just fine. Yeah.
All right. So the program you chose right now at Learn to Fly, is it a modular or an integrated program? So how's the whole program structured right?
So I joined in as a diploma student for the commercial pilot's license. So I think, yeah, you would call it a modular program because you want to get those 200 hours of flight time if you want to convert your license to a DGCA one. And at the time when I joined in, it wasn't COVID, so I was a little bit iffy about it. I was like, okay, do I do the 200 hour or do I just go with 150 hour? syllabus. And I'm glad I chose the 200-hour one because now the market's down over here. And at least that way, now that I've started that, I can just finish it up instead of having to change my whole plan over on. So, yeah.
All right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you haven't gotten your undergraduate degree or any of that sort
No.
till now. All right, so a lot of people do that. A lot of people actually go around getting their degrees before proceeding with pilot training, and a lot of people actually change their careers as well. So I think
Yeah.
you straight away went into pilot training.
Oh, yeah. I attended university for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's nothing against that university I went to, but then I just didn't feel like I belonged there. So I was looking for ways to get into the cadet program, and it was good. My parents were also pretty supportive. I mean, it would have been impossible without their support.
All right, so where are you right now in currently the program? Where how many ratings have you achieved, and how was the overall experience for you switching from a very course structured program to a program where you can go around doing as per your timetable and as per your availability?
Uh, it is stressful in the sense that when when you're in a cadet program, you have a job. When you're not in the cadet program, you don't have a job. You have to fend for yourself. So that way, it is a little bit stressful in the sense that the reality is kind of looming. But as far as the training side of things go, oh, it was amazing. It is amazing. I finished my commercial pilot's license a few months back. I'm doing my instrument rating right now, my multi-engine instrument rating. I finished the multi-engine part, uh, and I just finished the instrument rating paper a few days back. So I'm gonna start doing the simulator sessions and the flight sessions, and I'm looking forward to it. And Learn to Fly's got an amazing team, really good instructors, and just fun guys to be around.
You're almost done with your training right now. It's just how many hours have you achieved by now?
Got around 250,
Yeah, so,
260. I don't know the exact number.
so you're
Can't
almost done.
remember.
All right. So, since you were a child, so you've been going to the airport and then you've been looking at the airplanes and, you've been trying to get hold of yourself to fly. So when you actually did that and when you actually soloed, so what was your experience when you actually took it off? Couldn't hold off the experience that you were actually flying the plane. So how was the whole journey
Hey,
towards that?
you can see me grinning right now as you ask the question. It was fun, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was nothing like it. Um, being all by yourself in the plane. I mean, even though it's just for one circuit, it's still a good feeling. That you're qualified to fly. You kind of feel a little bit proud as well, but at the same time, you want to keep yourself grounded and not let it get to your head.
Keeping yourself intact and keeping yourself very stable, it matters a lot when you're doing all of that stuff, because you can
Yeah,
get hold of a lot of stuff together and then it becomes a real hassle to get out of it, right?
true.
Roshan, we've got one very looming question. Student pilots actually opt for pilot training or this career especially, the employment prospects after the pilot training. So like you said, cadet pilots had a letter of agreement that you're supposed to sign, which is just a piece of paper. I know that, but at least they have something going on around them. But whereas the student pilots who are going through modular or integrated programs in some other flight schools, they might have few types here and there. But what about the employment prospects after you finish off your pilot training in Australia, and how the visas, the things associated with that? Can you please discuss it?
One of the things I try to tell people is that keep an open mind when it comes to aviation, because getting into airlines is not the only thing out there. There's stuff like charter pilots, skydiving pilots, and I mean, okay, that was a very bad term. You're not the one skydiving;
Yeah.
you're the one transporting the people to skydive. And adventure pilots, scenic pilots, they might not be as fancy as doing an airline job, but they still get you to have one foot in the door when it comes to aviation. And I also forgot flight instructors. They play a very important role because without them, you wouldn't be able to teach students to fly. So, as far as employment prospects in Australia go, it is tough. It's tough for a fresher pilot. It's not easy at all. But I was reading an article a few days back. I think it was on the Bloomberg website. It was saying that pilot demand is slowly rising back. It's not as rapid. It's not as high as pre-COVID levels, but it's a start. So if you're gonna start your training this year or within the next 1 year, then again, don't quote me on this, but there is a chance that you might get a good opening when you're done, because it does take a year and a half to a good year and a half to finish up everything that you want to finish. And I think I forgot to mention there are also stuff like aerobatics pilots or skywriting pilots that are who do a pretty good job. But it's totally up to the person. If their only goal is airlines, then yeah. But all I would say is keep an open mind. And as far as visas go in Australia, um, I can't be too sure because right now I'm on a student visa. But I do know that there are options for temporary resident visas, provided the job is on a list of some kind. Again, I'm not sure what that is. But that being said, it's going to be really tough to get a job. So you got to be prepared for anything.
That is very true because aviation as a whole is just not airline. You've got general aviation, you've got corporate aviation as well. You can always switch back to the flight operations side as well because the skills you actually perceive as a pilot is profound and you won't be able to get it from anywhere else. So that is why I think pilots are very resilient in all of these kind of things and they switch careers pretty quick if something happens. So Roshan, what's your
So
future strategy if I'm going to ask you? Because right now you just discussed about the employment prospects, and
yeah.
Australia closing off their borders and has caused a lot of problems, massive delays here and there. But what's your future
Oh yeah, for
strategy? Are
sure.
you willing to come back to India and convert your ratings or convert your licenses and all that stuff?
Sure. I'm planning on doing a couple of more ratings apart from the instrument rating. Uh, right now, it looks like I'm going to come back and get my DGCA stuff done. So because India is also rising, and as soon as India opens up for international travel, like completely, it's predicted that India could become the next Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia is famous for being the transport hub. So I'm looking forward to coming back to India and getting my stuff done. And I must say, it will be lighter on the wallet as well, because if I'm in India, I'm at home.
So are you
I
looking
mean,
forward to the DGCA conversion and all the stuff? So because I think that takes a lot of time as well. It takes about a year or something.
I am not looking forward to the long waiting times, but
Yeah.
I am looking forward to getting my license.
All
I
right.
mean, it takes around 6 months on an average, but now that it's COVID, I don't know how things work, and but I really hope, fingers crossed, it's not too slow.
I did a podcast with one flight student who actually had converted his pilot licenses during the COVID time. It took around 1.5 year for him to finish off all his ratings. I think you might be lucky because
Yeah,
things are picking up in India as well, and a lot of
yeah,
COVID cases and lockdowns are coming down. So I hope you finish off your conversion and wait for the next shortage to come in India for sure.
yeah. Me too, man. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So now, to the aspirant pilots who are going to watch this video, watch this podcast, what are the tips and tricks? Would you give them a little bit of insights here and there about the pilot industry and how do they perceive with the pilot training in Australia, especially researching about flight schools and finishing off your ratings in the meantime? What tips and tricks would you give?
I'm not sure I'm the right person to be asking the tips and tricks, but more than working hard, work smart. See if see if there's something that can cut short your time, especially with the ground stuff. Don't take shortcuts. That's not what I mean. But try to work smart, because working hard's good. It's not bad. But then if you can work hard and work smart, then that's something even better. Make sure there's one thing I would tell to people who want to study in Australia. I don't know how things work abroad, but over here, the ground exams are really tricky. It's just that you need to read the question like 3 or 4 times to actually understand what they're asking you. So RTFQ, read the full question, because they might just insert a word not or something else over there, not not. So, and that changes the whole meaning of the question. And in your excitement, you might end up clicking the wrong answer. And I've done that many times. So that's something. As far as flying goes, enjoy it. and make sure you speak up if you don't feel things are going well. Talk to whoever your administrators are or whatever, and see how you can. Just because flight training is a very expensive affair, and if you keep quiet about it, you're probably going to lose a lot of money as well. So you don't want to you don't want it to become too late before you say something about making a change in your training module or whatever. And for me personally, I'm really thankful that Learn to Fly has got an amazing team. So I did have one or two instances where I felt like it wasn't going the way I hoped it would. And I just raised a query and they were like, yeah, sure, no worries, we can accommodate that. And yeah, so I guess all it means is you don't have to be too scared, but at the same time, don't be unreasonable in what you ask for.
Roshan, so one more thing I have to ask you is the time frame it took for you to completing all of your ratings. Did you finish all of your hours under an average? Hours, that's what you call them. How long did the whole ratings took for you, BL, the CPL, and multi-engine and your instrument rating as well? So what was your time frame?
So if you want to minus the months that I took on break and the lockdown, it took me 2 years. But
All
if you're
right.
going to take the lockdown, and I had taken a 6 month break as well, not a 3 month break, sorry. And the lockdowns are like close to 5, 6 months now. So it's like 3 years. So if it weren't for those, it's 2 years. 2 years at a relaxed pace.
All right. So are the lockdowns still in Australia right now? I did
Yeah,
hear a few protests going on around.
it's not good, man. There are protests going on, but then, and we are in lockdown. So, but then there's only so much even the government can do. So, no use in blaming them. They're just trying to keep the hospitals from getting overcrowded and getting more people to vaccinate. So, yeah, we're still in lockdown. It's a bit tricky, staying in lockdown and you're like, you want to go fly, but you're not able to fly. So, but hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel should be coming in soon.
All right. So, what about the weather conditions in Australia right now? When you were actually doing your ratings and when you were doing your pilot training as well. So, how many days of sunshine do you actually get there?
I can only talk about Melbourne
Okay.
and Adelaide. Adelaide was unpredictable since you'd have morning it'd be sunny, afternoon it's all cloudy, evening back to sun, night it's raining. So there was stuff like that. But Adelaide had a little bit more consistency. Melbourne's a totally different game altogether. It's I'd like to think that you'd experience all 4 seasons in a single day in Melbourne. So it's if I had to rate, like how many days of sunshine I'd have at a stretch. In summer, probably like 3 to 4 days in a row.
All right.
Winter, 2 to 3 days. Depend. It really depends. It really depends on the weather systems, and sometimes you have cold fronts that you didn't see coming, and that really changes weather patterns, and all of that.
All right, Roshan. Now we're at the end of the podcast. Got anything else you want to tell about the aspirants, cadet pilots, or the pilots in general as well who are looking forward to pilot training? Like you've stated before, but
Um,
is there anything else you want to tell them? Anything about?
I would say have fun
Yeah.
because if you if you don't have fun in what you're doing, you're probably not going to like it. And work hard, but have fun at the same time. You know, maintain that balance. You don't want to have too much fun because then you're going to lose your eye on the ball. But yeah,
All right.
have fun, and work accordingly.
All right, Roshan. Now, thank you so much for coming over to this podcast and sharing your experience, your journey towards pilot training in Australia, and the amount of uh, time it took for you to completing all of your
Yeah,
ratings and licenses as well. Now, Roshan, we've got a few rapid fire questions at the end of this podcast. So, if you
sure.
don't mind, I'm going to ask you a few questions here. So, which airline are you looking forward to working for if you had to choose one airline in the future?
So is that question like if I had to choose one airline and they had
Yeah.
no restrictions?
No restrictions, nothing. You just have to choose one airline to work for.
Lufthansa.
Okay.
Yeah. Lufthansa because that was the first airliner I saw as a kid. The huge ones, the A340s and the 747s. It was the 400s at the time. So I have a little bit. I'm a little bit sentimental about But Emirates is good. Emirates or any of the Middle Eastern carriers for that matter. I wouldn't mind. But if it were to be more realistic, at this point, if any airline came to me and said, "Hey man, you want to fly this?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, man.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go."
yeah. That is very true. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think so. Lufthansa flies any of the A340s right now. I don't think so. They have. I think they've
I,
phased out
I,
most of them.
yeah, I think they're flying a few though. I
Okay.
think they're flying a few because I do see the odd A340 coming down to Chennai.
All right. So, what is one major tip would you give to the aspirant or the pilots who are training right now? Just one tip would you give them?
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Don't rush anything, but you don't want to be too slow as well. So, yeah.
All
So
right, Roshan. Now, thank you so much for coming over to this podcast. A short podcast, actually. It didn't take much of time. Going through all of your journey and your expectations and your experience towards pilot training in Australia as well. So, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for taking so much of your time.
thanks for having me over, man. Cheers.